speakers. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. It's a stellar panel, and it is really brilliant to see so many people here. And as with all Venezuelan Solidarity Campaign events, I've already learned such a lot, and I know you've got a fantastic day ahead of you. By the way, talking of popular media, nobody's mentioned, I don't think yet, #VenSol. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, get tweeting. But first, let me start by bringing greetings from the TUC and my colleagues on the General Council. It was my honour in 2008 to be on a TUC delegation with Francis O'Grady to Venezuela. We met with government. We met with grassroots trade unionists, we met with non-governmental organisations, women's organisations, we went to health centres, we went to community-based manufacturing outlets, we went to the oil fields. We met President Hugo Chavez. In fact, we had dinner with President Hugo Chavez, and I understand absolutely why he's so mourned. But we also met the trade union leadership who were complicit in the failed coup d'etat. Now, it was their bad luck, but they didn't know it, that we'd watched You Can't Televise Our Revolution. And it was their bad luck that we'd seen them on film conspiring with the right wing to overthrow a legally elected president. And so when they told us, shedding crocodile tears, that the allegations against them were quite wrong and ill-founded, we knew they were lying. We knew they were lying, and that's why in Venezuela a whole new grassroots trade union movement is being built. But I also want to talk about the media, because the media was at the heart of that coup d'etat. Now, last night, Radio 4 listener that I am, I was listening to a programme about popular media, and never, very interesting fact, Goebbels manufactured and distributed cheap radios to the German people to get the message out. And there is a similar blitz of media, right-wing media propaganda in Venezuela, which has to be seen to be believed, and they are very actively at the heart of a conspiracy. So this is a truly historic moment for Venezuela, and we must always remember that what happens in Venezuela should be a matter for the Venezuelan people to decide. But it's also time to reflect on the differences between our lives and those of ordinary Venezuelans and look at what they can teach us. Venezuela, as we've heard, has gone through enormous changes in the last few years. 15 years ago, before Hugo Chavez won his first democratic election, Venezuela was still suffering from the effects of the Washington Consensus. Public services stripped to the bone because ideology said so. Poverty on the increase because that was the responsible thing to do. And ordinary people fearing for the future and the future facing their children. Now, Hugo Chavez gave those people something to live for, something to fight for, something to vote for, and they did. The Venezuelan people have, time and time again, turned out in huge numbers to support Hugo Chavez, and now they have done so again for his successor, Nicolas Maduro. And we have to ask ourselves seriously, why Venezuelan elections regularly see turnouts of over 80% and why we probably won't. Probably. I'm a betting woman, I'll put money on it. This week, George Osborne has been trumpeting the success of getting a quarterly growth rate of 0.3%. Effectively, nearly getting the British economy back to where it was 6 months ago, while Venezuela has a growth rate of nearly 6%. Here in Britain, we face an explosion of food banks, cuts in public services, and the potential privatisation of swathes of our health service, a disgrace in this, its 65th year. In Venezuela, they've seen free healthcare for millions for the very first time, illiteracy eradicated, and extreme poverty more than halved. Last year, close to my heart, a new labour law came into effect in Venezuela on May Day, naturally, just a year ago. A law that cut working hours, that guaranteed 2 days off a week, 2 days off each week from work, that included better rights for women, including improved childcare, supported disabled workers and guaranteed minority rights, as well as enshrining trade union freedom in law. What have we got? Demanding unions meet higher, even higher standards before we can exercise our fundamental human right of withdrawing our labour. Now, I can see why Venezuelans are proud of what their country has achieved, and you can guess how I and how other TUC comrades feel about what the Tories have done here. So apart from learning the lessons of Venezuela, that real change and real progress is possible and enthuses the electorate, what should we be doing? We need to build stronger links with Venezuelan trade unions. My own union, Unite, has built up our links with sister organisations, including the bus workers union that President Maduro came from. We need to explain what's really going on in Venezuela to our members, to our politicians, and to our people. We need to explode the myth that Venezuela is a dictatorship. A dictatorship? It's held more elections than us in the past 15 years. Or that the economy is a basket case. That growth rate of 6% that I mentioned earlier wasn't the fantasy of the wide-eyed, gullible Chavista. It came straight out of the CIA fact book. The same publication says Venezuela's debt to GDP ratio is 49% as well. Now, I'm not as bothered as George Osborne by that ratio, but I tell you what, comrades, let's be frank, he'd kill for it. And finally, we need to defend the Venezuelan people's rights to decide their future at the ballot box. Perhaps Hugo Chávez's most important legacy of all. We must insist that people respect the result of the election, and especially that Western governments, some of them elected on much shakier electoral systems and with much smaller majorities, don't intervene in Venezuela's democracy. That is our demand, and we pledge to work to democracy. Viva President Maduro, viva Venezuela. Thank you.